Hello everyone. This video is going to be about my brother Ben's communication software. Just a quick background, my brother Ben has a rare condition called TUB4A related leukodystrophy. Ben used to be able to walk and talk, though it was a little slower as a kid. Over time, the condition kind of took his ability to speak and walk, and right now he's practically a quadriplegic. Ben lives with me, his older brother, and my wife, Nancy, and we take care of him at this house that we renovated for him that we call NARBE House. One of our missions in Ben's care is giving him a little bit more independence and freedom, because over the last decade or so, Ben hasn't been able to do much for himself at all. Ben used to be able to use his hands to play video games and control the TV with a remote, and he used to be able to use systems like the Dynavox to type on keys. Over time, we've tried other ways for Ben to communicate, and it's been greeted with some frustration and some real challenges. So this is my attempt at creating something a little bit more useful for him. So we started this a couple years ago by reaching out to the Speak Your Mind Foundation. A gentleman named Dan Bacher got back to us, and he helped us with a very simple communication software, and it worked pretty well for Ben. And over time, I had figured we probably should think of more ways that Ben can use this type of software. So instead of recruiting Dan Bacher again to help us with more challenges, I decided to utilize AI, ChatGPT, to help me with developing some software for Ben using kind of Dan Bacher's template. So what I did was I used AI. I used ChatGPT to walk me through how to develop a script in Python. Now, I will be very clear about this. I am not someone who knows how to code. I am just a dude who wants to take care of his brother, and I have a lot of determination and passion for this thing. So let's get into the software. So this software has been very useful for Ben, and it has been a game changer for us. So just to go back, we did try some other software. There's some software out there called Cough Drop, which is similar to what I've developed here, and it works somewhat for Ben, but Ben has a hard time seeing what's being highlighted on the screen, and it's kind of limited in what he can do with his computer. So I wanted to build something that was a little bit more robust, that he could use easily to watch TV shows, change computer settings, etc., etc. Can't really do that with a software like Cough Drop. There is software called eye gaze, or eye tracking software. Ben has a condition called nystagmus, and his eyes move pretty rapidly, so he cannot focus well enough using that software to select things on a screen. So the next best thing for us was to use his head movement. So Ben has reliable left and right head movement, so he can use two buttons on his headrest to click, for example, the enter button or the spacebar button. And these two buttons can be used to scan and select through different options on a computer, provided the software has accessibility for that. This was my attempt at creating something for Ben that could be used and modified over a long period of time. And the fact that it's built in Python means that I can modify it as much as I need and as much as Ben needs, and fine-tune it to make sure it works for Ben as his condition changes. So that's a big factor. So let's get into it. So Ben has a Surface. This is a Microsoft Surface. I believe it's a 6. When Ben signs in, the screen is usually above him or in front of him, and the camera will see his face. It'll do some facial detection, and it will open up Windows for him. When he loads it up, it's just a Python script. It's in his start processes. When it signs in, it sees his face, it'll detect his face, and it will load the software after about 30 seconds or so. It'll bring up the software for him, and I'll go through all the different things. You'll notice that there's nothing on his desktop. That's by design. We wanted to make sure that there was nothing that could be clicked on accidentally, which has happened before when I didn't have it cleared. When I had his desktop visible, he was accidentally clicking on certain items on there because just the nature of pressing spacebar and enter, if something was selected, when he presses the enter button or the return button, it'll load what's on there. Another limitation we had before I get into the software itself is every now and then the start menu would randomly open. So I have something in the software that ensures that the start menu is always closed. Because every now and then pressing space and return might open the start menu. It just depends on what's being selected behind the scenes. So with all that out of the way, I programmed the face or the base menu with these 4 buttons. So he has an emergency button, which will alert us if something is wrong. Ben can press it, and it doesn't send a text or anything like that. Maybe that's in the future, but this will actually increase the volume of his tablet, and it will announce that he needs help. So Ben has a left and a right button. The left button, the blue button, is designated for spacebar. The right button is designated for the return key or enter key. And when Ben uses the software, he can scan through each selection by pressing the spacebar key or the blue key, his left side. Okay. He can also scan backwards by holding down the button, which I put in there. If he holds it for more than 3 seconds, it will scan backwards every second or so. And he can go back to the previous button. If he wants to find something quickly, let's say he wants to go from emergency to entertainment, he can just hold it down and immediately go to entertainment if he's just trying to get to a show. So that way he doesn't have to fatigue his head or his neck muscles by clicking so many times. So that is a big game changer for this type of software. So we'll go forward to the emergency. I'll just show you how that works. So when he clicks on the emergency button, it increases the volume of his tablet, and it will announce an emergency alert. He hits
help, 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 help. So when he does that, he hits it on accident all the time, but it's good for him to have because it's on the beginning of the screen. If he needs to get there quick, he can get there. So he has that. He also has some settings. This was actually a very good thing for us to add because, Ben likes to listen to things loud, but, he's in the next room. If we say, hey, Ben, we need you to lower the volume, or let's say he hits the emergency button on accident, he can actually lower the volume himself. Settings menu.
So he has the volume settings, which we'll use right now. Also, there is a timer, so Ben doesn't do accidental clicks. So every time it shifts into a new menu, or anytime he presses the enter key, there is a 3-second time delay on when he can use his buttons again. And that's by design because Ben sometimes would accidentally click them 2 or 3 times in a row. So this ensures that he gets to where he needs to go, and this plays a role into his entertainment side when he loads a show. So if Ben goes into his volume settings, he can go in there and lower the volume. So we'll just lower it.
Volume.
It lowers it by 8 notches or so each time.
Decrease volume.
It'll tell him what he's doing.
Decrease volume.
Ben's vision isn't the best, so we wanted to have
decrease volume.
Each of the buttons do a text-to-speech every time he scans.
Decrease volume.
So every time he scans to something, instead of trying to read it,
sleep timer. 60 minutes.
It'll give him the name of what he's trying to click on.
Cancel sleep timer.
So he has sleep timer.
Turn display.
You can turn his display on and off. You'll notice that the words are off the screen. I just need to change the font size, but or the padding.
Restart. Lock,
restart, and shut down. So he can go through all these different things, use them, and they work fine. So those are the settings right now. He also has a communication menu. So
settings.
When he goes to his communication menu, you'll notice that there are
communication menu.
It's a very basic list. Each one of these has basic terms in them or things he might need. So on the basic, it's yes, no, help, please, etc., etc. Again, the scan and select is the same thing. He can hold down the scan key and go backwards, go forwards, and select with the right key. But all these, he has different quick conversation things. This is great. But if you wanted to go more custom, I created a keyboard for him. Now, let me talk about the keyboard real quick before we get into anything else. So the keyboard is a separate Python application that I had to build because since I'm so new to Python and so new to coding, I wasn't sure how to implement a keyboard into this script. Now, don't judge me. Again, I'm a total novice. I was able to build this. I'm very proud of this, but if you were to look at the code, you'd say this could be a much more modular code, and I'm learning about how to do that now. And that's a big forward step for me after, since I'm on this version, which I call version 8.5. The next step for me is to make this more modular so I can edit the menus a little bit more cleanly, so I can add a keyboard directly to the software instead of having to create a separate application. So how this works is when I click on keyboard, it'll actually close Ben's software, this base software, and it'll open the keyboard software.
Keyboard.
So it closes, opens the keyboard software. The keyboard software is custom. Again, I made this with some, I was playing around with some ideas on how to do this. So I came down to a row scan and select method where it'll go down through the rows. When he selects a row, it'll scan through the row. So for example, the top button is designated for playing what he's typing. The next button is for, so for this one also, you need to be able to click this for more than 1/4 of a second and no more than 3 seconds. So that's to ensure that Ben is very deliberate on what he's selecting.
Controls. A, B, C, D, E, F. G, H, I, J, K, L.
And again, if he holds it down, it'll go backwards through the rows.
A, B, C, D, E, F.
Okay. And if he were to spell something, let's say he wanted to spell the word hi, he can select the row.
G.
And then scan to the letter.
H.
Select the row.
G.
Scan to the letter.
H.
The letter uses text-to-speech to tell him what letter he's on because Ben's vision isn't so great.
I.
The top row is a little more bold, a little bit easier to see. It's a little closer to his face when it's on his bed or on his wheelchair. That way he can see it. Once he has the word, he can go up to the top row.
A, B, C, D, E, F. Controls. Huh.
And he can say the word. Now he can also go through and make multiple words. He can add a space, delete the letter, delete the word, clear it. Also, this is fully touchscreen, so if he needed assistance, we wouldn't need to use the buttons. We would use the touchscreen to be able to help him if he needed it. So we'll clear the word. We also have something in here called layout. So I'm just going to select it because it's a little faster. But he has layout. The layout is over 1,200 different words that he has in here. Each one has different categories. So for example, if I go through this, he has a controls, he has
general references.
General references, so this has common phrases, pronouns, requests, time and day references, location references, family and proper names.
Daily life.
Daily life things.
Education and nature.
Education and nature.
Emotions and actions.
Emotions, actions.
Practical and everyday living.
Practical and everyday living.
Shows and TV.
And some shows and TV. So this bottom one is literally just some of his favorite shows, and it lists like some of the best characters or some of the main characters, some of the objects and certain phrases that they might use for each show. So he has like Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park. So Ben watches a lot of TV, so we figured if he wanted to start talking about a show, he can click on this show and select, for example, if we wanted to Simpsons, he could select Homer and have Homer's name spelled for him, and he can say it.
Homer.
So he can also clear that. But again, all these are useful. So he has like pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, and as you can see here, it's very robust. There's a ton of things, animals. We just have over, I think it's like I said, it's 1,200 words that he can go through. He doesn't use this as much. When he selects layout, it goes back to the keyboard. So that layout button is a toggle between that menu with all the different words and the keyboard itself. So Ben has a lot of options, and he's learning how to spell, and he's getting better and better at it every day. Okay? When he clicks on the main button, it will close the application, and it will bring up his main menu, his main application. So that is the communication side. He also has an entertainment side, which I wanted Ben to be able to pick his own TV shows. You know, when he initially started living with us and being here, we would have to figure out all of his entertainment, make sure that he was watching a show he wanted to watch, and sometimes we didn't know. So what I did was, I wanted to create a menu of places, I wanted to create a menu of things he could watch that he enjoyed. So these buttons down here don't work, but these are going to be coming soon. So live streams, music, audiobooks, and games. They're going to be added. I'll talk about this a little later, but right now we have streaming shows that we can go to.
Streaming shows menu.
Ben can go to his streaming shows, and he can pick a bunch of different genres. So if you wanted to go to, let's say, cartoons, for example, he has some of his favorite cartoons in there. Okay, and he can click on them, and he can access them and watch them. So a couple different things I want to talk about here. So when I was programming this, the issue was going to a show. This, for example, this button goes to the first episode of Family Guy, season 1, episode 1. Okay, how do I consistently have Ben go to the next episode without it reverting back to the season 1, episode 1? So I had to incorporate a script that would call to a JSON file that would save the URL every 10 seconds or so of what Ben's clicking on. So anytime Ben clicks on Family Guy, every 10 seconds it says, oh, we're on Family Guy, let me save this URL to a JSON file. So if he watches 5 or 6 episodes, the next time he clicks on this, it will call to that JSON file before it actually plays that first episode. If it cannot find that JSON file, it'll revert back to the first episode. Okay, so I'll click on it. It'll close the application. It'll bring Chrome to the forefront, and it'll maximize it so that way it's full screen. And then Ben can then watch Family Guy. Okay, so it pauses by pressing the space bar, and to close it and to get back to the menu, I created a little sequence listener. So anytime Chrome is open, there's a sequence listener that listens for the enter key or the return key to be pressed 3 times. Once this button is pressed 3 times, since Ben doesn't press it that often, only to select things, this was a good option. So he presses this 3 times, it will close Chrome, and it will bring his application back to the forefront, or back to the foreground. So it closes Chrome, brings his application back. And it does that anytime Chrome is open. Okay, so if you wanted to watch other shows, he could do it. Same type of thing. It's the same thing. You can just go to a different show. It loads. It'll bring it up. Now, there are some limitations. Obviously, if a show is removed from a streaming service, we have to fix it. But as of right now, he can go in and watch whatever he wants, whatever he likes. And you can see it's on season 2, episode 3. So Ben's been watching this a bit. So now it's going to the episode that he was watching. So we'll close it. And is back to his menu. Okay, so a couple things just to mention on this. So there are different streaming services, different limitations with streaming services. Hulu seems to be an easy one to use, but we have, like for example, Pluto.tv is one we use. So if I go to, for example, if I go to the movies menu, okay, and I go in there, I have these 2 buttons down here which go to a Pluto link. So when I click on one of them,
Action movies,
you'll notice that it's going to start Chrome, and it's going to have a smaller screen for where it plays, where the player is, and it's also going to be muted. So for me to fix that, I had to write a script to, when it sees Pluto's being played, I have it written in there so it will click on the screen, it will full screen the video, and it will unmute it. So let's see how that works.
Screen.
Okay, so unmuted it and full screened it. So that basically showed It opens, it sees that, or it says we're trying to watch Pluto, so let's full screen it and unmute it. So a handful of things like that I had to put in there. Otherwise, it would just play muted, and it would be a small screen, and Ben wouldn't be able to watch it. So, so that's that. So future things that we're looking for. So again, I call this Ben Software 8.5. This is the 8th iteration, and I call it 0.5 because I incorporated the keyboard. But the 9th version will be, keyboard should be fully implemented into the system, so that way it doesn't have to close the application and open a different application. It'll be all built into one software. The streaming shows will become more robust. We're going to be using more Plex server stuff, and there is a Plex API that I can use to make that a little better. So we're going to make it way more robust, give him hopefully hundreds of different shows and different genres that'll be updated very frequently. So Ben can basically have full streaming services that he can select what show he wants to watch. He doesn't have to be limited to just the ones that are in the menu currently. Live streams, this will be for live TV and some live streamers on Twitch and stuff, so we'll have a bunch of those on there. Music, that'll be to his favorite Spotify playlists and stations. Audiobooks will be, again, for some of his favorite Audible books. And then games is something we're going to look into, creating games like tic-tac-toe. That'll be easy for him to use with scan and select method. Potentially checkers. And then something that's very interesting that I'm looking forward to testing out and working with is using a local large language model AI system. So right now I use ChatGPT, and I do know that this is something I can do, is create a game, a fantasy-based game that can be kind of infinite, where Ben can, basically live in a fantasy world. It'll just be text, but it'll read to him fantasy scenarios, and then Ben can have like a choose-your-own-adventure game. It'll remember things like items he picked up and like a layout of a map or people's names, and it'll give him options. So it'll be a very cool way to interact with a video game without actually having the graphic side of it, but it'll just be another way for him to interact, and he seemed very interested in that. So kind of a choose-your-own-adventure game that's infinite. That would be the idea of that. Or a choose-your-own-adventure novel, I should say, that Ben can play. Now, just to go back to the communication side, because that is the most important side. Ben's communication software, this works pretty well. He is learning how to spell. He's getting better and better at it every day. A couple things that we are working on in communication. One of the things that I have tested and I have some positive results with is using AI to do conversation listening and context-aware responses. So I have built a very basic kind of alpha version of this where it uses the OpenAI's API, and it will pull, it'll open up his microphone. It will take information from a learning phase that it has with Ben, where it'll ask Ben a bunch of different personality quiz questions. And over time, it will become more and more robust to understand what kind of responses Ben might say in a situation. So for example, when Ben uses this software and opens up the microphone, it'll listen for questions or context where it might have a bunch of different phrases or a bunch of different things that Ben can select to respond with. So if someone says, "Hey Ben, how are you? What's your favorite color?" Ben might get a choice that says, something positive, something negative, something neutral, something, different. But it'll basically give him a bunch of different options. So it might say, "Hi, I'm fine. How are you? My favorite color is red." Or it might say, "Hi, how are you? I don't really have a favorite color," or "I don't want to say," but it'll have like, I'm not doing so well, I don't really like colors, whatever it might say, but it'll have like context aware based on Ben's information that it gathers. So that's the idea. I have tested it. It does seem to work. There's obviously limitations with it, but it would be a really cool feature that I think Ben could use if he ever wanted to use like real-time conversation, or if he's meeting someone new. It could be very easy for him to go in there and then just have it listen for him, and then he can pick what the response could be. So there's that. The other thing too is in the keyboard, one other aspect that we want to add is predictive text and predictive sentence structure. So it'll listen, or it'll watch for what Ben's typing. It'll try to finish words for him. It might give him suggestive words down here in the keyboard somewhere, and then it'll help him with finishing sentences. So that way, typing doesn't have to be as arduous and tedious for him. But that's, in the future. As of right now, we're very happy with how this is looking, how this is working. There is a link to the GitHub in the description below. And we're always looking for people to help us out and give us some feedback and some input. And just one other thing. So the way Ben uses this, if I didn't describe this before, so we're going to be looking to build a way for us to attach these buttons. Right now they're just Velcro on this headband. So we put this headband on Ben around his head, as you see in some of the B-roll, and he can click each button by turning his head. That's when he's in bed. It's the easiest way for him to do it, and we have a custom pillow that I cut for him so that way he doesn't accidentally hit buttons too often. He still hits buttons accidentally periodically, but this is to hopefully help him with that. One thing that we want to custom build is potentially a U-shaped pillow or a U-shaped headrest that will rock very easily back and forth, so that way Ben can just rock it one way or the other, and that way it'll just stay on like a track. Because sometimes when Ben's laying there, this thing falls off his head or changes. I'm just trying to figure out a better way for him to be able to hit those buttons more accurately. So if you guys have any questions, just shoot me a DM. We have a Discord server, the NARBE House Discord server. Again, this software is on GitHub, and we're just looking for any feedback, advice, or if you're just want to see how this thing progresses, follow along, and I'll be updating this over time, and you guys will be seeing how Ben uses this in future videos. Thanks for watching.